Okay, we need to talk about something. I've meet so many founders, so many business owners that keep saying they want to launch an app, but they actually mean something else. My name is Ivan. I've been building apps and software businesses for the past 8 years. I failed multiple times, but I was able to succeed in a few of my attempts. But what I do on a daily basis is I help founders succeed with launching their successful apps. So in this video, we're gonna cover a few key ingredients that we see in most of the successful apps on the market and how you can make sure that your app is one of the leaders in any app category. So the main thing I want you to think about is when you say I want to build an app, you actually don't mean building an app, right? You actually mean that you want to build a business that is centered around this app. Because at the end of the day, an app is just a widget. Could be something very small. A calculator is an app, a flashlight is an app. We've become so accustomed to those things and they're now part of the phones that we buy. We don't even think about them anymore, but they used to be apps that were sold in an app store. I don't think a business can be built around any app. Some apps can be just cool to exist, but everybody should be aware that maybe there won't be a great success. You can't build a big business around them, but some of them can. I was recently talking to a potential customer of ours that they want to build an app. And we spent quite a bit of time trying to pull that app out of them so that we can actually start talking about the business, because they were talking about the app all the time. They were talking about the functionalities and all the little things that they want to have in there, but it was unclear where is the business case in that. I realized that this person was a little bit surprised that I was asking these questions, and that's why I wanted to record this video, because I realized that this is one of the things that makes us different compared to the other app development companies on the market. And this is the fact that we have been part of successful businesses. We don't just build apps, we build businesses, basically. From that perspective, this founder was surprised that I was asking so many questions, because they were probably expecting standard call with a consulting company, just asking them questions about the software, then we end the call and then they end up with a quote. And by the way, at the end of that conversation, I told them, you don't need an app because you're not ready yet. You don't even have a business case. And we don't want to be the type of company that is out there just to take money from people and just build stuff that no one is ever going to use. We want to be the company that builds the great apps on the App Store, and we want to build long-lasting relationship with those founders, with you, basically. So now back to the topic. When I say that you have to think about the fact that you actually want to build a business, you have to think about it as a business, okay? An app or a software or a SaaS company, this is just the product, okay? And in any business, there is a product or a service. Technically, a SaaS business or a SaaS company is software as a service. So it's technically a service, a productized service. But we can talk about all these different types of things you can sell in a different video. When you say you want to build an app, I want you to think about the fact that you actually want to build a business that is making money. Therefore, you need to treat it as a business, not just some, how to say, weird thing that exists on the internet and somehow is able to generate loads of cash without you ever thinking about it as a business. The three main components to any successful business, at least most successful businesses, so to speak, that people like us can start. You have to think about acquisition, which means customer acquisition. You have to think about delivery, which means delivering the service or the product. And then you have to think about retention. These are more or less the three pillars of any successful business, right? So in this case, the app is just part of the delivery. It's not the whole business, obviously. You also need to think about customer acquisition. I actually talked to a founder today that is trying to launch a software, and they have no idea how they're gonna be getting customers to that software. They don't even have a clue. They haven't even thought about that. And then once they get to the software, it's somehow expected that this person that is seeing this for the first time is going to know what to do in it. And it's a relatively complicated thing, like enterprise type of software. So they haven't thought about the onboarding. That's why when you talk about delivery, it's not just the acquiring the customer. You then have to deliver the product and the service, and then being able to ingest or consume it is vital to them. Even being able to say that they're using your software, or in this case, your app, right? So your app or your software is just part of the delivery. It's not the whole thing. It's not the whole business. Lastly, it's retention. You acquire the customer, you're able to deliver the service. Probably you want to keep them there, especially when we talk about software. So many of you think about subscriptions, and subscriptions are great, even though they don't work in all cases. They are great in many cases. Building a successful subscription business, meaning that you need to retain people and they need to keep paying for that subscription. Because usually the customer acquisition cost and the cost of delivery is not enough to cover just one, let's say, cycle of them being subscribed to your product. If it's a monthly subscription, I think the average length of a monthly subscription, or the average retention on a monthly subscription, is 3 months. Let's say your monthly subscription costs $2-3 US. You need to pay for delivery. You need to pay Apple 30%. You need to probably pay your expenses and things like that. Can you make up the money that you pay to acquire the customer and deliver the service if you only get 3 months of them being subscribed to a product? What is the pricing strategy and things like that? I mean, it's all a business, right? If you want it to succeed, you have to think about it as a business. And that's if there's even a business out there. I mean, if there's even someone looking for that thing that you're trying to build. I don't want to make it sound like boring or tedious or complicated, but it kind of is, because being able to deal with all that is probably going to be the thing that separates you, the successful app founder, from all the other ones, which apps never see the light of day, or no one ever uses them, or they just spend a boatload of cash without making anything back. And I've been there myself. That's why I know. I spent 6 figures building an app, which I even thought I had customers for it. And I actually did. But I didn't think about how I'm going to acquire new customers, because I had a list of 2,000 emails. A list of 2,000 emails, even if you convert 5%, how many subscribers is that? And 5% is actually a very good conversion rate. How long are you going to retain those customers? I spent 6 figures building that product. And this is not really money that I had lying around, so that I could spend just like that for something. So I had a lot on the line with that product. I still had zero idea how I'm going to acquire new customers. The delivery was kind of clear, so the product was more or less done. But I hadn't even thought about retention. Sure, they come in, they pay once, and what happens after that? How do we keep them subscribed? At some point, I realized that my whole business model was broken, because it was actually the reverse of the mindset that you need to have when you think about retaining a customer. It promoted the idea of not renewing your subscription. It was that twisted, what I built, because I wasn't thinking about it right. I wasn't thinking about it as a business. I was only thinking about the product. And that's what we all do, because we're builders, right? We are problem solvers. We see a problem. We want to solve that problem. We want to build something. It's fun, exciting. And then we get to the boring part, which is marketing, sales, retention. I think that's where most people either get confused or they fail. They don't know what to do next. So many customers come to us and they ask us for a quote for an app. And we give them a quote and they say it's too expensive. Well, it's not too expensive if you know how much money you're going to make back from it. So if you think about it as a business, actually the cost of building the app is relatively small compared to what you should be spending on everything else. What you should be spending on marketing, on retention, delivery, all the other parts of delivery, which are not the product. The cost of building the app is usually the smallest cost, by the way. Yeah, surprise, surprise. And for many people, this seems like the biggest cost. And if that's the case for you, then maybe you shouldn't build an app. Because if you think, let's say, 25K or 50K is too much to build an app, well, you're going to have to spend a lot more than that on marketing if you want to make a business out of it. Anyway, I don't want to sound harsh, but that's the reality of it. So if you want to be successful and if you want to build a successful app, you have to think about it as a business and think about all the different parts that make a successful business. If you already have experience building a business, just remember it's more or less the same. Or if you're already working in a business somewhere, try to talk to people in that business, try to identify what are the different areas in that business. How does that business acquire customers? How does that business deliver their service? How does that business retain their customers? Because it's all the same if you want to build a successful business. It doesn't matter if it's an app, if it's a SaaS company, or any other company that people like us can start. Okay, that's it from me. As always, guys, thank you for paying attention and see you in the next video.